Golden Hind, Part 2 of the Ships of Tarshish series. The Golden Hind, originally named the Pelican, was a ship that will always be associated with one man, Sir Francis Drake. It was commissioned by Drake to take him on a voyage beyond South America through the Strait of Magellan to the mostly unknown coast beyond. The keel was laid and registered in Plymouth in 1575. The voyage was secretly authorised by Queen Elizabeth I, who wanted to break the Spanish hegemony, or hegemony if you're American, of the Pacific coast of America. One aim of the expedition was to find potential areas for English settlement. There was tacit agreement that Drake could attack and plunder any Spanish ships or settlements that he came across. The Queen herself gave 1,000 crowns towards the expedition. Several prominent members of her court also invested in Drake's voyage. In 1577, Drake set up a fleet of 5 ships to take part in the voyage. The largest and most powerful was the Pelican, weighing about 160 tons with 18 guns. Francis Drake was born in Tavistock, Devon, England. His date of birth is uncertain, probably around 1541. His parents were Protestants, and he grew up in a time of religious turmoil when England was struggling with the intense emotions engendered by the Reformation. In 1549, the Prayer Book Rebellion took place in Devon and Cornwall, where pro-Catholic forces took up arms against the introduction of the English language Book of Common Prayer and its Reformation theology. This uprising resulted in a number of pitched battles before it was put down. It serves as an example of the strength of religious sentiment at the time. It seems that at some point during this period, the Drake family, who were Protestant, had to flee from Devon and move to Kent. The details of Drake's early life are not clear, but he was a product of the Protestant Reformation, and his name is synonymous with England's fight against the forces of Spanish Roman Catholicism. Drake became famous as a privateer. He made several daring raids on Spanish ships and settlements. As a result of these successes, he was given the aforementioned commission to lead the voyage to the Pacific. The 5 ships, led by the Pelican, set off on 15th of December 1577. As a result of storms and disease, only the Pelican successfully managed to pass through the Strait of Magellan, the other ships either being wrecked or returned home. Drake renamed his ship the Golden Hind prior to entering the strait in order to honour his patron, Sir Christopher Hatton. His family crest was a Golden Hind, that is, a female red deer. The rest of the voyage was a spectacular adventure story involving the first circumnavigation of the globe by an English ship. Along the way, Drake raided Spanish settlements, captured Spanish treasure ships, but failed to find a shortcut home through the fabled Northwest Passage. Unable to find a shortcut and being pursued by the Spanish, Drake headed west across the Pacific. In the Southwest Pacific, he reached the Spice Islands and was able to trade some of his goods for a huge haul of exotic spices, mainly cloves. He then continued westwards, crossing the Indian Ocean, rounding the Cape of Good Hope on 15th of June 1580. He sailed north and arrived back in Plymouth on 26th of September 1580. This is just an outline of the voyage of the Golden Hind. The value of the treasure on board was phenomenal. Half of it, £160,000, went to Queen Elizabeth. This was sufficient to pay off her entire government debt and have £40,000 left over. Drake was allowed £24,000 for himself and his crew. He became vastly wealthy as a result. As with the Merry Rose, the story of the Golden Hind illustrates the good and bad side of the Protestant Reformation in England. Firstly, we will look at the negatives. The voyage of the Golden Hind was driven by a desire for wealth and expansion. There was little compunction about attacking Spanish settlements and native peoples. Drake was always alert to the main chance. To the English, he was a hero, but to the Spanish, he was a pirate. Drake himself had started his seagoing career as a humble seaman on the Medway, but became involved in trading and slaving voyages with the Hawkins family. During these voyages, he became involved with battles with the Spanish, and his life was marked by two intense passions. Firstly, his desire for personal and financial gain. Secondly, hostility towards the Spanish. These two things were also prominent features of the Protestant Reformation in England. However, there were many positives that came out of Voyage that left their mark on the development of the English nation. The voyage marked a new era of freedom for Protestant England. Below are 4 ways in which the voyage engendered a new sense of freedom. Freedom to explore the world. Up until this point, the world had been divided into Spanish and Portuguese zones by the Treaty of Tordesillas in 1494. This treaty had been signed by Pope Alexander VI, but with the rejection of papal authority came the freedom to expand into these previously prohibited areas. Freedom from papal control. The voyage marked a new era where Protestant adventurers roamed the sea with the Bible as their guide. The Reformation rejected the idea of having to communicate with God through priests, but instead men and women had a personal faith in God through the Bible and prayer. Catholicism was seen as idolatry and a form of religious control over free people. Freedom from fear of larger nations. England's main enemies in the 16th century were France and Spain. Both nations were immensely larger and more powerful than England. By way of illustration, the population of the Spanish Empire in 1600 was nearly 30 million. The Kingdom of France was about 18.5 million. The population of England and its possessions was about 5.5 million. From this time up until the Battle of Trafalgar, England was fighting nations larger and stronger than itself. Unsurprisingly, the 1662 prayer book contained a prayer to be said before a fight at sea against the enemy. This prayer contained the line, "For thou givest not always the battle to the strong, but canst save by many or by few." In other words, with God's help, we can defeat our larger enemies. Freedom for the common man. Drake was a common man and spent his early years as an ordinary sailor. The voyage of the Golden Hind included gentlemen and adventurers among its complement, as well as ordinary seamen. Drake insisted that all should do their share of the work, and because of this inspired devotion among his crew. He shared his spoils with his crew, and so the voyage marked the dawn of a new era where an ordinary man could make his fortune by his own efforts. This was a feature of the Protestant Reformation, the belief among ordinary people that with the help of their God and their Bible, they could escape the shackles of serfdom and religious control and make a better life for themselves. Replicas of the Golden Hind exist in London and Brixham, Devon, to remind us of this amazing story. This is a picture of the replica of the Golden Hind at Brixham, Devon, which is well worth a visit. If you've enjoyed this video, you can find more information at prophecy-workshop.com. Thanks for listening.